I melted a funny material called TYVEK, created collagraphs with it, and took these prints from it. Stay tuned to see how I did that. Hello Gelli print fans! In the last but one video I showed you how I melted food bags consisting of plastic and aluminum with different tools, and how to turn them into landscapes that you can print with a Gelli plate. I worked the prints out, and some nice images, as I showed in my last video, were the reward. Subscriber Avanel, I think it's pronounced, suggested to try the same thing with TYVEK. So I'm trying that today. Thank you, Avanel. I ordered a protection suit because the envelopes that are made of TYVEK were only available in large numbers here in Germany. The suit, if I cut out some parts, should be doing the job too. So I will be melting this stuff and see what interesting structures I get. Very important, wear a good mask. This stuff is probably not a good medicine for you when it's heated up. I'm doing this outside, as you can hear, but I'm wearing a mask anyway and sending my dog away. To protect your table and the tools, I use these heat-resistant sheets. I think baking paper works just as fine. You will need an iron. Mine is for wax painting, but you can use a regular household iron. Also, you can use a heat gun. They are not expensive. So first I have to cut out a part of the suit that is a bit larger and has no sewing stitches. Funny, obviously you can tear the stuff as soon as you cut in. Putting on the mask and placing the heat-resistant paper under and on it. The iron is set to the highest position, number 3 on the wax iron. I press it down firmly but move it a bit as to not burn too much underneath. You have to try this for a little bit, you will quickly get a feel for it. It melted a little bit strange here, and it took me quite a while to understand that the pattern was really taken from the wooden table underneath. That's how you get new ideas, by happy accidents. Be careful not to put the iron directly on the TYVEK. That will probably ruin your iron. Oops, that was a little too much heat. I don't mind a few holes, they probably print interestingly, but this was a little too much heat, so I'm reducing the heat to 2.5 position. After letting it cool down a bit, I try again, and this time nothing much is happening. In the end, I decide to go back to 3, but press it on shorter and move it more. I have also made some wrinkling in the TYVEK material, which also makes interesting effects. You cannot really tell in advance what structures you get. That can be annoying, but also positively surprising. I always let myself get inspired by these surprises. This slowly starts to look like a landscape in a very abstract stadium. You can also just print sort of an abstract painting. You don't have to necessarily interpret it as a landscape. Then it is also possible to hide the fact that I get some messy results here and pretend I planned it like this. Now I want to try the heat gun, which usually gives me totally different structures. With the aluminum and plastic it got me nice blooms and so on. I try very slowly and carefully first. Also be careful not to burn your hand, as I almost did here. You can see immediately how the TYVEK reacts to the heat gun, so you can control it a little better. I'm actually trying to make the foliage of a tree here. The heat gun produced quite a strong creasing, so I'm flattening it again with a wax iron. In the end, I will not use this first try for a print, but you get the idea. Next, I want to try and cut out a tree out of the TYVEK. I also want to use 2 layers of that stuff, so that maybe the holes that I burn will not get through the second layer. You could probably also glue the tree to a cardboard if you don't want to print the holes as such. The drawing has way too thin branches. I would risk melting them away totally, so I cut out not following my lines, but making the branches bigger. Can you see how this branch underneath suddenly contracts? That's so funny. So Tina, make larger branches next time. Not quite satisfied with this, so I'm moving on to the heat gun. Don't get too close with the heat, or the tree will wrinkle too much quickly. Again, that's a matter of feeling you get with practicing. So this is my second collagraph. Next, I want to add some aluminum tape. I'm cutting out rectangular shapes to get a contrast with the more natural look of the wrinkles the heat tool makes. You can tell that the creasing of the materials differs a lot. I quite like the structures the aluminum gets when I'm using the iron again. So that's my third collagraph for this printing session. In the same way, I want to create an aluminum tree. I will spare you the fiddly process, cutting out the tape, and speed this up a bit. Just don't do as I do here. Don't cut the shape on the heat-resistant paper, but use a cutting mat instead. In the end, although the creasing looks nice, I really don't like the shape of the tree, but it's worth a try to print it. Now for the Gelli Plate printing process. I'm using the cheap watercolor paper that I buy at the dollar store. It has about 120 GSM, I think, and takes the prints well, being thick enough to draw or paint on them later. I am printing with the Golden Open slow drying acrylic paints. You can use other acrylics, but they dry much faster on you, and I don't want that. I am mingling blue and quinacridone gold directly on the plate and roll out a very thin layer. Then I'm pressing down the TYVEK collagraph, starting with the aluminum tree. Well, I'm actually turning the gel plate around and place it on the aluminum tree collagraph. Have to use some scrap paper to take the paint that comes through the holes. The result is nice, but it will not be one of my favorites from this session. I'm printing the same collagraph in black. The layer that I'm rolling on here is a little too thick, So the result is so, naja. Just a tad too dark, I'd say. But I like the holes. Making a mix of black and the quinacridone gold. Again, the layer is too thick for my liking. Concentrate, woman. I'm printing this with my cubistic landscape. Yeah, like it. I just don't see the cubes anymore. Ah, but look at the TYVEK collagraph now. Isn't that so beautiful? I think I'm going to glue this to a canvas and use it on its own as a painting. And I'm printing directly from the collagraph as there was such a lot of paint on it still. The result is quite light, but I think I can make something of it. Oh, sorry, the camera didn't record, but it's the same color combo again. This result is the nicest of this series, I think. There are some structures that are really a little bit like 3D-ish. Love it. Again, camera didn't record. I have a thinner red layer, quinacridone gold layer that is, now, and you can really see the TYVEK suit structure, which is nice. And another one which has a blazing sun over there. Also very interesting. Now I want to print just the cutout tree. I place it carefully. I'm taking a sort of a photo paper or a Yupo paper. And when I lift it, I notice that the background is so interesting that I want to make a double exposure here. So I'm holding it in place on the right side and taking the TYVEK tree off carefully so it's still registered, and I'm printing that pattern also. It's a beautiful result, but you can't really draw on it with a drawing pencil later, but then I'll just use markers. And I'm making another one like that, again with the transparent brown and the black. But this time I'm picking up excess color with the deli paper. And that's always nice because it doesn't take all the color off around the tree. It just leaves like quite a bit of interesting patterns. And I'm taking the print with the watercolor paper again. And here's my question while I'm showing you how I work out in a sped up way. I'm working, the last one I printed, I'm working out here with colored pencils. And I wanted to ask you whether you would like to have a second part that shows the working out of all these prints I just made. And I'm working them out anyway. I just want to know if you're interested in another video about this. Tell me in the comments. And so, hoping to have inspired you with this new melting technique. I hope you had some fun. Sorry about the noise in the background, my dog. See you next time. Bye.